but anyway, I just show them, is the 3-2-1 C chord, and it's the 4-2-1 G7 chord BFG. So then I have them, I don't know if we do see my hands, probably not. I think I have them repeat that for a while. Sometimes I already play the melody on top while they're doing that, or I just have them do that. Then I point out in the B section, we play twice of each, but still alternating. And then next, I would introduce the ending chords, which are different. So in this case, just the 4 measures before B, or the 4 ending chords, and I introduce those chords. And then the next subject would be, okay, recognizing pattern in the right hand plays the melody, and the melody consists either of chord notes also, or of little scale notes. I have them explore those, experiment with those, and we also talk about fingering. Fingering is often very subjective, so I have my own changes to printed music. I adapt it depending on what my students like to do. Depending on what piece, I sometimes tell them which fingers they have to use, but usually we work on together. What are the preferences? What would you most like to do? In this particular piece, the printed music of Sam Milligan's arrangement was 1, 2, 3, 1 for the beginning. But me and most of my students prefer to do it with 2, leaving the 1 free for the next chord. And that's the other thing when I explain fingering. I also give reasoning. So why do we use which fingering? So usually it's like, okay, we want to have 1 finger free for the next note. Or if we have 4 notes in a row, we use 4 fingers in a row, and so on. So if they don't already do it intuitively, I have them explore it and find out why do we use which fingering. I then either play the whole piece then for the first time, or play it again, or have them play the melody and recognize the different sections. And if I have not introduced that yet before in their music life, then I do it definitely for this piece to talk about, we have the same section, but they're slightly varied. So that's why I'm calling the first one A or A1, the next one A2, the last one A3, because it's slightly different, or because it's the 3rd time in the piece. And then B1 and B2 is exactly the same for the notes, but it has one difference. And then we can talk about that next or later, but that's really depending on how the flow of the lesson goes. In today's lesson, it just happened to that I realized, oh, the difference between B1 and B2, what's the difference? And I try to let the students find it out themselves. If not, I prod them a little bit. The difference are the dynamics. And that again could be a point in their life, harp life, music life, that it's new for them. Then I introduce it and explain what it means. If they know already, I said, okay, then let's look at dynamics. What are they, and how do they sound differently? And another next point would then be putting both hands together. And again, that depends on the time in a given lesson, on how fast the student is learning. One step I usually do for any piece is my student plays one hand, I play the other hand, so we can already put the whole piece together and see how it sounds without them having to struggle with both hands. But if they are fast enough, we do it in this lesson. Otherwise, I say practice each hand separate first, and then we put it together in the next lesson, or try putting it together at home. And when the 2 hands together sound fairly well and they feel comfortable with it, then we would work more on the dynamic or the musical flow elements, meaning introducing or revisiting the subject of rubato and how can we make it nice flow. Sometimes we even have to talk about the 3 beats versus 4 beats, and that's really that we play each note after each other to have 3 beats flowing through. So that really depends on how far my students are. But I like this piece because it goes well for almost very beginners. And then we would just work very slowly and maybe just keep the hands separate the whole time. Or for more advanced beginners, then we can grasp the whole putting two hands together sooner and the patterns and working on musicality. So this is my overview for this piece. Are there any questions? And I don't know how to moderate that, if somebody wants to lift a hand or just start talking, or if there are no questions, then I think I'm done.
I think you're a very good teacher. I don't know whether you can hear me.
Thank you, I can.
I like your approach very much. I feel like
Thank you.
if I'm coming after you, I'm going to stand on your shoulders.
Thank you.
I left for a while, but I'm back now. So thanks, Gretchen, for taking over. Annette, that was very, very good. Do you have anything you want to add to that? Does anyone have any questions? I can't really see if anyone's raising their hand or not. I don't even know if you can hear me. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, very good, very good.
I was just going to something about that piece because I find that's difficult for students to get the directions because the notes are going in different directions. You know that there's
Right.
that you've got the chordal pattern, but when you switch, you know, it's kind of a rub your tummy, pat your head kind of thing.
Yeah, that is also another good reason to play that early on. And sometimes I preface it with the exercise where we just do the counter motion either as a statement or as an exercise. So that is sometimes has happened before they play the piece already, then we can revisit that, but sometimes that has not happened yet, and then this is a good introduction for the counter motion. Right, thank you for pointing that out.
I apologize, I got in late and I missed the name of that piece. What was the name of that piece?
The piece is called In the Month of May by Franz Beer, and I used it from the book, from the Sam Milligan Fund from the first volume. Little background gossip. I actually got this piece from my teacher without any comments, and I didn't know where it was from. So I asked the group of teachers here first, where is this piece from? I want to use it, but I don't have the source. And somebody else knew. So that I will look into this book next and see if I find other good pieces in that book.
Yeah. I grew up on that book. That's a lot of fun.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions, Annette, thank you so much. And just thank you to all the teachers who have agreed to do this today. And if there are any of you in the audience that would like to participate as a teacher, let me know. And I put that in the one handout. So thank you, Annette, very much. And I think we'll now move on to, since Mary Muggles mentioned going next, I think we'll do that. I have to figure out how to.
I think everything that Annette said, I use that also in my teaching. And I think what I've prepared is not so much intended for actually talking to a really much younger person. I was thinking of more trying to convince teachers to take this piece on. So I'm sort of promoting it, but I'm telling you a lot about how I teach as well. The Caribou Wagon Road is the next one on the screen, and it was originally written for 2 lever harps. As a duet, it was first performed by Charlene Wallace and Kim Robertson at the Artwell Summer Harp Festival held annually in Wells, British Columbia, Canada. The Caribou Wagon Road is the second movement of Charlene's Island Mountain Suite, which was commissioned by Island Mountain Arts of Wells for the turn of the millennium. The road itself was a well-traveled route through the Caribou Mountains of British Columbia for thousands of gold prospectors in the 1860s. $6.5 million in gold were taken out of the mountains along this road. Charlene Wallace is a Canadian harpist and composer based in Toronto, Ontario, and rhythmic complexity is a strong feature of her compositions. First, I'd like to look at the structure of Caribou Wagon Road. page 1, I think that's page 2. That's page 2 that's up now. Has a strong, has a song-like melody in the right hand with some rhythmic syncopation between the right hand and an habanera bass line in the left. The habanera is a music genre originally from Havana, Cuba, and used here as it has the momentum of turning wagon wheels. The B section, beginning on page 2, is a contrasting section, more instrumental in character than bars 1 to 22. It has much syncopated interplay between right and left hands. Bar 36 to 48, the melody from section A returns with octave doubling in the right hand and the habanera bass returning as accompaniment. And then the coda uses that little motif I described, I think I did, as a repetitive motif. I'm going to play you a little bit. I'm not playing the whole piece.
Can you turn on your original sound, Mary?
Pardon?
Turn on your original sound because your music sound is disappearing. So we are not hearing what you're playing.
All right. No, I don't know how to do that. Turn on original sound.
Is there something up at the upper right hand or left hand corner of your?
Set up professional audio in audio settings.
Yes, and
If I click on it, I'm clicking on it.
Okay, and then go back to your main Zoom screen, and up in the upper left-hand corner, there should be a thing that says original sound for musicians, either off or on. If it says off, click that and it'll turn it on.
Oh my gosh, it doesn't, I don't see that up there. It's not there.
Okay, so back to your settings. Go back to your settings.
Set up professional audio.
Yeah, did you
That
click
one?
on the original sound?
I've clicked on that. Okay.
And it says
Microphone.
did you click on the one that says show original sound? It says original sound for musicians.
Original sound. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Click on that.
Now go back to your Zoom screen.
All right.
And up in the upper left-hand corner, you should see that tab.
Original sound. It says it's off, so I want to put it on. It's on.
Okay, now you can play. Thank you.
All right. So I'm doing the A section, part of it. That was part of the song-like first section of the piece. There's a motif which is used between most of the sections, and this is it. You'll see it in bar 13. And now this is the B section, which is more instrumental in character, with much rhythmic interplay between the two hands. Part of that, and then Charlene has the A section with the song-like melody return at the octave. Now here I have to say there's a mistake in the fingering. It should be 1, 3, 4 here. Now I'm going to jump to the coda, which has a pedal note, F. There. Lyric playing applied to the Caribou Wagon Road. I would say, well, an important foundation for lyrical playing is a solid technical foundation. And if there's time, I'll discuss how I deal with that. And here's some ideas to aid in expression that I use in teaching. Well, first of all, mark in the phrases and feel that the music breathes at phrase endings as a singer would breathe in singing. Look at a dynamic piece within phrases. Usually there is an important note, often higher than the opening and closing notes of a phrase where that occurs. And you can see I've marked that in bars 1 to 4. And to help feel how the weaker notes in a phrase contribute to the smooth, expressive passage to the important notes, try adding words to the phrases or just sing the phrases out loud. Even when playing the piece in performance, keep singing the melodic line in your head as an aid to expressive playing. Here are some words I've made up for the opening phrases. I sing a song while rolling on, where there's gold, stories told. Sing. Another suggestion is to imagine the melody is played on another instrument, especially one which, unlike the harp, has to sustain long notes on the breath. The voice, for example, the harmonica or a concertina, since this piece has a prospector's theme. This piece has many sustained long notes that the performer has to feel and hear carrying over from the middle to the end of phrases. The quality of tone on the long notes needs to be crafted to both sustain their sound and to have a warm singing quality. The continuous percussive hum of the left-hand habanera rhythm does help to sustain the long notes, and the dynamic support from the left hand helps to lift the dynamics in the right-hand melody as a male dancer lifts a ballerina in graceful leaping. To help energize the habanera rhythm, a slight accent on the eighth notes played with finger 2 and on beat 3 with the thumb contributes to the momentum and rhythmic excitement of the piece. The continuous percussive hum of the left-hand habanera rhythm does help to sustain the long notes, and the dynamic support from the left hand helps lift the dynamics in the right hand as a male dancer lifts a ballerina. I'm repeating myself. Now aids to the challenge of the rhythmic complexity and tone quality in the B section. This section needs a strong fingered percussive touch, like traveling a musically talented rocky road. Notice the strong accents are mostly on the ands of the main beats. There is strong percussive interplay between the hands. Then I guess I can talk a bit about technique. I think important is a foundation in learning and practicing chords, triads with octave doublings and seventh chords, played with their inversions in solid and rolled forms. I wouldn't give this piece to a student where we hadn't really done a lot of work on that first. You probably notice in my music I've got these little curly things coming down principally from chords, and that is I call that the springing technique, and it's the pluck and the spring as one physical motion. It helps the hand to be always ready for the next placement of the fingers, especially with chords. This assures being always on the beat and helps to keep the hands relaxed. The little curly symbol came from one of my teachers, Sarah Davidson, and I have a treasured piece of music, a minuet marked up with learning aids by Sarah, with more springs than you would find in a mattress. And again, in terms of technique, scales, carefully taught, where the teacher is always vigilant for good hand position and relaxed fingers. as an aid to playing smooth melodic lines for lyrical playing and to avoid hand damage. Fingering. On first reading through Caribou with my students, I work on choosing the best finger patterns. And once we have decided on that, I stress staying with that pattern in practicing. I encourage playing over difficult passages many, many times, possibly marked with small stickers to make the hardest spots the most secure in the piece. You notice that I've written in chords at the beginning of the piece, and I found that knowing the harmonic structure of pieces along with noticing how chordal patterns may repeat helps with reading and memorizing. Examining chordal patterns also reinforces what students are learning in their music theory books. And like Annette, I often would start with reading the left hand first and then the right hand. And then thanks to COVID, I send a lot of my pieces out. I record them, the left hand alone, the right hand alone, but also encourage them not to spend too long on those separate parts, because then the piece doesn't hang together. The hands don't perceive it as working hands together. Then imagery, which relates specifically to the Caribou Wagon Road. I describe syncopation here as rocky road percussion. This is talking to the student. I've added appropriate prospector's words to the song-like opening melody as an aid to lyrical playing. Beginning in bar 35 to 42, where the section A returns up an octave, there is a feeling that the landscape from the road is swept up with the octave doublings to the vertical view of the Caribou wagons above the deep gorge of the Fraser Valley. The harpist might be inspired to play this part with strong lyrical tone. The ending could be played without a retard and with a diminuendo to suggest that the wagon train is continuing on out of sight and hearing. To encourage students to get the harmonic at the end to ring just right, which they often don't, I suggest it is like a diamond bright star above the wild, majestic mountains, to quote Canadian songwriter Gordon Lightfoot in his ballad, Canadian Railroad Trilogy. Above all, tell the story of what inspired the composition. You can tell I'm really promoting my Canadian nationalistic sentiments here. Charlene's piece is available on her website and her other compositions, which are outstanding. A good, by the way, prelude to learning this piece would be Alfredo Ortiz' Habanera Gris. It has much the same components, but is a little bit easier. There, I'm done.
Thank you, Mary. Oop. Yeah, I'm okay. Thanks very much. Thank you, Mary. And like I said, you've got your handouts, and I hope that you were able to see the screen while I tried to screen share. But thank you. That was very thorough and detailed. We appreciate that so much. Okay, shall we move on? Julietta. Let's go to Julietta, because I don't know Julietta very well, and it's time to learn who she is. But I have to find you here, and I'm trying to make you the spotlight, but I can't find you. Gretchen, Gretchen did it. Thank you. Oh, and then also I'm going to enable multiple participants can share simultaneously. That's for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Do I have to make you co-host as well?
I don't think so. I teach on Zoom, and I typically allow multiple participants, and then my students can share a screen. So I think
okay,
it's going to work.
Take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. This is very exciting and meaningful to me to be part of. Some of you have interacted with online for years, but I get to see your face. And I even remember Annette from years ago. I heard her perform beautiful klezmer music, and I have her CD. And but there's such wonderful teachers. I appreciate these presentations very much. So I'm presenting a piece that I've arranged because I've been very involved with harp pedagogy, and I have a labor of love called Classics at Your Fingertips. It's a 5-volume from beginner to lower advanced. And the piece I'm sharing with you is out of the book 3. So I consider these like lower beginner, upper advanced beginner, book 2, lower intermediate, advanced intermediate, and then lower advanced. It's a labor of love. All the most beautiful melodies that I encountered in any instrument, including the classical harp repertoire, I put in these. And so, and I don't have a website right now. Years ago I did, but it disappeared. And I have like half technique. I'll be putting one back together, but I do put a lot on my YouTube page. And what's relevant for this, so if you remember my name, Julietta with 2 T's, Rabens with a B, it's a German word for raven. My playlists are relevant because I do have 2 pedagogical playlists. I have the Classics at Your Fingertips, which is the adult beginner method, and the Plucky Bunnies Harp Adventures. And basically books, right now I have books 1 through 3, that's an ad, but basically I have books 1 through 3 with hands playing the pieces and like changing a string and some practical things, so that students can see some hands playing at their actual level. And it's always helpful anytime you can find some sites like that. I found a good site with some Bernard André's stuff as well, because when you see advanced harp, it's exciting, but beginners have a hard time knowing what does that mean in their own hands. So basically, this Variations on Green Sleeves from book 3. I like this one. It's because it's kind of a review of technique. And so what I feel for beginners, I know we're doing intermediate. Beginners, I like for them to get a really stabilized hand position, playing with all the fingers and playing more than one note in a hand, note reading, counting rhythms, those kinds of things. For intermediate players, I like them to get introduced to the whole foundation of technique, which involves replacing, rolled chords, special techniques, crossovers, and so they have their whole toolbox. And then advanced, they push that toolbox into, faster and harder and so forth. So this is a nice one I wanted to present that is an overview of some of these important techniques. Now this is focusing on the 3-note triad, because conceptually that's always a little easier. It's the same in both hands. So the theme starts with the rolled chords. And then the first variation has some replacing of those triads. It'll have like a little broken chord triad, and I'll kind of go through some of these, and this replacing. And then the second variation has hand crossing, so like left, right, left with the triads. So we start book 3, the beginning of the intermediate exploration. We do the 3-note triads before the 4-note because, they can same in both hands. That kind of thing is helpful. Now, I will mention that I don't have the F sharp in the melody, which is a characteristic, that Dorian characteristic of Green Sleeves. But through the years, all the decades of teaching, I do try to accommodate students who have smaller harps without levers. And so this piece can actually be played on a 22-string lap harp without levers, if you play an octave higher. The melody each time, I will have to say in the books I don't have the brackets. I did draw these in a PDF. I didn't have an exact it's hard to do that, to publish the brackets. But so basically, I have the melody here, and it's the same for the second variation as well. It's identical. So the right hand is taken care of. And I do encourage some hands separate, just like some of our, Mary and some of the other wonderful teachers are mentioning, and try to break things down phrase by phrase. This is also a nice one, because the harmony has a nice, very clear pattern going down by step. Sometimes I'll also encourage students to do that right hand alone, but see how it feels to play it in both hands. And then the same thing with the chords. If you're doing the left hand, how does that feel to do it in both hands? Back when I was young, I started on piano, and when I switched to harp, well, I mean, I still do piano, but one of the most delightful things about harp is the fingering is the same in both hands. Yay! And what's wonderful about that, though, is that you can actually play a right hand part in the left hand, and it's reinforcing the exact same fingering. And just as a general educational philosophy, the more places you can store stuff in your brain, the easier it is to find it. So, you know, the right hand is in the left hemisphere, left hand in the right. So sometimes it's helpful to run through some of these things in both hands. But they are going to want to get a clear sense of this nice little upward release, clear brackets. So that much, think of that phrase, nice clear phrase. When possible, I do try to put 4 measures on a line, because that seeing the line in the phrase is kind of nice. I will encourage students, if you want to play through the whole melody right hand alone, that's fine, left hand alone. But when you're really digging in, phrase by phrase, so right hand, do that right hand until it stabilizes. Take a look at that left hand until that stabilizes, and then just get that one phrase together. Don't worry about the rest of the piece. There's a lot of repetition in music, and if you can get that first phrase to stabilize, you might be surprised how much of the piece you've actually learned. And then I guess I could mention some things for playing rolled chords. There's basically 2 exercises. I encourage, and I do have a little technique book with some exercises. You can have, do this kind of thing where you're speeding it up gradually. And then there's one place where we have the 2 hands. So you can also do the trade-off, and build it up. Find where your weak spot is and reinforce that. So when we talk about the before the beat, where does that rolled chord start? And I try to get where we can release in both hands at the same time in a lot of spots. Like here. So that was our first 2 phrases. So I'll encourage first phrase, second phrase, and then put that verse together. And then we have our chorus. And that much you could work through, and hands together. And then here's our last phrase. So a couple little spots to zero in on, getting used to rolling bottom to top. There's one other little spot. Let's see. This little spot here, this 2, 3, 1. I usually do have them make a little bit of an exercise out of that. That's a one spot where we have a little bit of replacing here. The 2, 3, 1 as opposed to 1, 2, 1. I like to introduce that fairly early because using different fingers for each one, you have a little more time to release the muscles. But basically that's the theme. And if you wanted to add the F sharp, more than welcome to. But this does also double as a Christmas song, What Child Is This? And it is helpful for people with lap harps. By book 3, there are some lever changes, so you get fewer options. But so basically, then the next step, because we're reviewing everything with triads, right hand is the same, and then the left hand, I do try to point out the left hand had 2 jobs. The first job is playing that same chord progression. And we can spend a little more time breaking down that. If you look at each downbeat, once again, we're going down by step, and then here, we're replacing. So a lot of times with students, I'll start with a rolled chord exercise, then they play the theme, and then I'll have them start here and do a replacing exercise like that, and then go down a step, and then just keep going down a step as their warm-up for variation 1. And just to break that down a little more, the first step for replacing is to go ahead and place everything, be nice and secure, play your 2 fingers, place everything, and then people will say, well, let's see, I think it needs to sound a little more smooth, and the students often recognize that. So then the next step is you kind of place in the air, get that shape, you've learned that shape by placing early, and then you place and pluck, like you're on a seesaw. Place and pluck, place in the air, place and pluck. And so separating that out as a little exercise is helpful. So that's job number 1 in the left hand. And then job number 2 is sometimes shadows as a little counter melody, like right here. But the downbeats are always the chords, and then the little, sometimes just to add a little bit of color. So then we have I should have mentioned earlier on the chorus, I do talk through how similar the chord progression is, but instead of a A minor, we have a C, and then we go down to the G. We do have one little alteration here with that little E to make it more colorful. So it's almost the same thing 4 times. But I'll go ahead and keep moving. And then this is what is so fun. This last variation, you won't believe you can actually do this on a little tiny lap harp. And there's 2 things going on here. The first thing is the melody. It is actually the same melody and the same fingering, but they're compressed into these little fragments like this. And then you'll see it's bracketed here where it says right hand. And I'll have them just separate those little melodic fragments out. Just a couple notes into the downbeat, each downbeat. So then right here, we're starting again. And then right here, so I just have the brackets over and over on the melodic fragments. I guess I'll go ahead. I would tend to separate verse and chorus, you know, in the actual lesson. Sometimes I'll circle these like in bright yellow, just so people can see where is the melody. So visually, little bracket, we need a bracket here. So we see what are the 2 jobs that need to be done, the 2 layers. So the fingering, like I said, it's like before, but they're just squished into little pickup notes into each downbeat. And then, see all these crazy notes. Well, you know what? There's a lot of repetition. So then the second job to do is the chords. So what we need to do here is we just do left, right, left. Just A minor. Same thing. Boom, boom, boom. And then G. So same exact chords we had before. Now the only little difference here is to make this fit on lap harps that go down to a G, I use an inversion of F. So now we have A, C, F. And then we have our E minor also in a little inversion, G, B, E. And we could talk through, in the lessons we do talk through little chord inversions before this point, so that word isn't like intimidating. So just simply, if we have it for anyone listening, if you have an A minor chord, you can play it A, C, E, C, E, G, E, A, C. If I said, I hope I said the right letters. As long as you have your A, C, and E, it's going to sound like A minor. So, but then we go through it again. Just kind of practice just the chords. Don't worry about those melodic fragments. Let's keep those two things clear in our brain. Two different things happening. And then when you put it together, it sounds really, really full. But it's physically, it's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to start with these little pickup notes here. Duh. So instead of the long melody, we just squish them. We squish them so we have time to do our fancy chords. Let's see. And then into the chorus. Same chords again, by the way. So boy, you get those sorted out and they're going to serve you well. And then you want to see the ending. So then we do. I guess we do. And if you play all of this an octave higher, it will fit on a lap harp. So, but if it's helpful for you to, if you want to get kind of a feel for some of these. Oh, I thought I had this. Oh, maybe I closed it up. But like I said, right now my YouTube channel is kind of my online hub. Oh, and I try to learn about singing, as you can tell. Let's see. So I have a few different kinds of things here, but the playlists, if you do scroll over, you do need to scroll over a little bit because I put them on early on. But classics at your fingertips. I have book 1, 2, and 3. And they put commercials on, but they don't last too long.
We probably should move along to our person pretty soon, but
okay, and I think I am actually all done. So
oh, great. Well, yeah. Good. That was very, very helpful. Thank you so much. And now we know about your books and your web presence, your internet presence.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. All right. Shall we move on now? Kimberly or Robin, which one of you would like to go next?
Okay.
Okay, Gretchen, can you find her and make her the spotlight? Yay!
Yay! Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for putting all this together, Mary. It's so appreciated. And I think being able to continue to share with each other repertoire and ideas is so important in our community. So thank you for your efforts. Julietta, I love your series. Rebecca Tadera in Louisiana introduced me to those series a few years ago, and they're so well laid out. I've been very happy to use those with a lot of my students. So it's a wonderful addition to the curriculum. So today, let's see, I've been teaching professionally for over 30 years. And I've gone through a lot of different books with a lot of different students. I've never just kind of sat in one particular one because I really try to tap into the individual students, and there's just more and more good material out there. So the piece that I'm going to be sharing with you today is called The Andalusian. And it's by Catherine. Is it Cater or Catter? Do you know, Mary? Cater?
It's Cater.
Cater. Okay, good. I've been saying it right. So this piece is from her Forever in Love with Horses book. She has some wonderful books as well that I think tune into certainly the younger student, but I've used some of these with my adults. She's got The Singing Wings and Harping Cats and Dogs, and just some really fun ones that I think a lot of the students kind of click into because of those animal connections. I know there are others as well, and they're published by Afghan Press. So today with the Andalusian, and I'm going to be holding this up because I didn't do any screen shares or anything like that. For a student that I have that's going kind of transitioning out of beginning into a lower intermediate level, I want to something that's going to build their confidence. And that's really important to me, that they feel like they can do things and do them well. So moving from something that's a more of a simple outline musically to something that's got some bang for its buck is always a win with me and a win with my students, because all of a sudden they're playing a big piece, and the Andalusian definitely portrays that aspect. But it uses a lot of things that they're familiar with, as well as bringing in some really great details and technical things that if they have not been introduced yet, they can easily be introduced. So again, I'm going to kind of hold this up. You can see it's going to start right off the bat with your glissandos. And they're going to want to play those glissandos, but you're going to make sure that they are counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, right in rhythm. We go into then some arpeggios that are inversions on E major chord. And then we've got this simple melodic line here with the PDLT technique. So if they have not already been introduced to that, this is something that's very manageable for their hands and their little brains while they're doing their root position in the left hand, but they're learning this PDLT. So they're bringing in a new color. It's repeated up an octave in the next line with the dynamic marking of piano. So as I talk through this, and then I'm going to play through this piece so y'all can really hear it. One of the things that is also very accessible with this piece is that the B, bass B below bass C is really one of the lowest notes you have. Any of these other notes that you have, these low E's, F's, there's about 10 of those. They're usually in octaves. So if you've got a student that's on a smaller harp, this will still work. You just drop that octave note out on the bottom. It's also the only accidental that you're going to have is G sharp. So if you have students that have not tuned flats to their harps yet, if they are still tuned to the key of C major, you can still do this one as long as they've got a G sharp lever, because the G sharps are going to be the only things the thing that you need in this. On the second page, you've got this really nice line here, da 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 da. So yes, I have to make sure they're counting that properly. And I'm trying to transition them, if they're trying to count how many groupings there are, to 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. Instead of 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? They may want to do that, but this is not, there's nothing else going on here. Then we add in the dynamics, and then they get to practice their lever changes. So this piece can be played on the pedal harp, but typically most of my students are on lever harp at this point. So even just going back and forth with the C and the D. They actually get to practice that phrasing, because really what she has just done is just written the crescendo, decrescendo for instead of a phrase mark. So they're learning how to phrase there without, not being able to see the phrase mark or understand that concept. And that's a great way to be able to introduce that concept. A lot of her left hand is in root position with arpeggios. So again, you have that opportunity to work with just the left hand so that they are connecting back down to the third finger and the third finger only. And I like to do that at the beginning of this piece as well. I find all these little spots in the left hand, and oh, look, the left hand's in treble clef. Our eyes have to look for whether we're going to be, when we're switching back to bass clef. Sometimes that's a new concept too for them, to be able to have to switch in that left hand. And she has so nicely put a fermata right here. So again, those that are new to working their levers have a chance to incorporate those lever changes in what works as the musical phrasing. So the writing of this piece is, I think, really wonderful. Here we have more root positions, and the right hand's going to be doubling. We've got more dynamic markings with the crescendos. The left hand now is going into treble clef again. And then we get to an accelerando. And they really have fun with this. First of all, we learn what accelerando means. And then with the accelerando and the crescendo, we get up to our forte here. Now, a lot of the beginning pieces don't have the accelerando, the molto ritardando. So there's lots of opportunities to also introduce new musical vocabulary at this level. And then we're back to something that's familiar at this point for the students that happened on the first page. But we're going to end with a really big bang with our glissandos, with our fortissimos, and with a piano marking at the very end, which again, this of course can be moved up an octave. So I believe that this piece just has so much to be able to offer, that transition from the advanced beginner into the lower immediate. And I want to go ahead and play it for you. And I'm sorry that I don't have this posted so you can watch along, but hopefully having talked through it will give you, you'll be able to hear these pieces, these little pieces there. And this is going to be their bang for the buck at the recital. Thank you. Thank you. It's just, it makes them feel like they're really playing something. And you bring in that visualization of the horses, and how the horses are moving around, and it just brings it to life. Lots of chances to work with musicality, technique, musical phrasing as well, and different effects like PDLT, and packaged in a way that still can fit in their early, lower, intermediate hands. So, any questions?
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even though we published that, I really don't think I've ever played it through. So thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, well, and I think last but absolutely not least is Robbin Gordon-Cartier. And let's see if I figure out how to spotlight you. Okay, girl, you are on.
Well, hello and hello and hello. And I'm just really excited to be here. And if, like me, I don't know, I thought we were going to one, but I will tell you, I promise you, I will cut off in 10 minutes. Don't leave. I've got so much to tell you. And but I also want to say, I mean, Charlene Wallace's music, Annette, who presented on hers, you got to check it out. It's gorgeous. I tell you all to get Griffith's Dream, but then I won't be the only one playing, so I'm not going to tell you how Griffith's Dream and Breathless is like the quiet Charlene Wallace sneaker music, but check out her music. Juliette, you're plucky bunny. Forget about it. That has saved some of my students' life who just could not read. So, Mary, thank you for doing this, because just being able to meet, I feel like I'm like, oh, look at this teacher, look at this teacher. And I do see, I think Karen Peterson, who, if anybody wants to learn about modes, check out Karen Peterson. She's in the mix there. So what I wanted to talk to you about, I'm going to
interrupt you. You go as long as you want. Take as long as you want. We want to hear what you have to say, girl.
Don't say that. I want to talk about Little Fountain, and I am going to see if this comes up. Let me see if my share comes up a little. Okay, so can everybody really see that a little bit? Yes? Enough? Oh yeah, you can see, yes? Thumbs up from somebody, or somebody say yeah. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Kimberly. Wow, somebody just wrote a lot. They must be leaving. Well, Robin, I don't know. Who's this? I don't know. Okay, stop it, Robin. Hello, Little Fountain. So I'm going to take this share off for a minute because I want to talk to you, and I don't want you to be looking at the paper. My presentation right now is on Little Fountain pet peeves. Okay, most of us, Little Fountain, when she talks about levels, I didn't really know, but Little Fountain kind of seems to sneak in there with the beginners and that like once you first get your hands on harp, I think simply because all of the seventh chords, because almost like Juliette was saying, it's a little, to tell a kid to put, their fourth finger on a string and skip a note, it's kind of getting their hands to be in the formation of seventh chords is kind of, it's familiar, it's comfortable. You could say, put your fourth finger on the F and skip a note, and it's comfortable. It's something they can look at, but it's also something that is very tangible. So I do believe that that might be one of the reasons why sometimes Little Fountain sneaks in with the all sorts of ways of playing it. We hear the Little Fountain with everyone, playing that beginning part. I want to tell you that I don't teach it from the beginning to the end. I have my sections, and when it's little kids, I photograph the sections. They have the music. I copy out the sections, and I give them just 4 measures here, 4 measures there. So the first place that I start with, and maybe it will, my friend is probably like, Robin, share your screens. So I will, so you can see what I mean and see my ramblings. I like to start them with this section here that I am going to call Section 1 for me. I hope you can see those 4 measures on my screen. It's kind of a little wonky, but there you go. Did I move it over? So those 4 measures, and ignore some of the writing, the B, G, C, C. Yeah, we use letters sometimes because sometimes they just aren't paying attention. But if you can see that, and really what I do with my students on this part is we look at the right hand and I tell them to put their fourth finger on that D. These are all seventh chords, right? D, F, A, C. You have D, F, A, C. This is the right hand. Put your fourth finger on B. Skip a note, skip a note. B, D, F, A. Go to G. And now go back to D, right? I get them to where they can just play those sevenths. Feel them, right? Feel them, because when I judge or I see people play it, these are the places where they always stop. So when I say my pet peeves of the songs, I'll say the places in the songs where all of a sudden the kids are like, oh, I forgot it changed. So once they've gotten used to going here, you just tell them, okay, take away the second finger. And voila, there is the chords that are written: D, F, C, B, D, A, G, B, F, D, F, C. And all of a sudden that becomes really solid. Why do I have to use 4-3-1? Can't I use 4-2-1? Like, they're not questioning really the fingering, because it made so much sense to just drop the second finger. In the left hand, the same thing, but something gets thrown in. That's why underneath you kind of see my BCC as a reminder to some of them. But before I even do that, I still have them put their left hand, fourth finger on B, skip a note, B, D, F, D. Play that seventh, play the G, B, D, F. Skip that third one and go down to the C. So they're going there, and now what I'm telling them is till they get used to doing that. Sometimes I even just let them do the G, and there goes my AirPod all the way to the other room. 1 second. I have small ears. I don't know if anyone else has that with these AirPods. So with the left hand, playing those seventh chords, you only tell them, you say, okay, you've got that seventh chord, move your third finger. Get rid of the third finger. So you have the G, right? You have the B. Move the seventh, so you have B, D, A, G, D, F, and then down, C, G, B, yes? And now, once again, they're not like, why is it 4-2-1? You know, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, just move the 3, I can do that. And so the only trick of this, of course, which is why you see the C, is where they threw that little C, D, F in. But that's easily learned, because now, once they get used to playing their hands separately, I find that it really is just a short jump to them now being able first to put them together in block chords. So I do fourth finger D right hand, B left hand, and they're here. Skip a note. They're there. There's that tricky one. So we just do the right hand right now, and then we go down to the C. But literally by them practicing that, so that right hand moves the second and left hand moves the third, all of a sudden you have the chords correctly. Left hand, you just tell them, give it a break and put all your fingers on, and then your right hand. You have them like looking at it in a different way. And remember, they've seen none of the song. This is just like a little, I call it I'm a school teacher, so I tell them, this is your do now. These 4 measures. You got to do it now. You got to have it learned by the time I see you next. And so once they've done that, then you can start talking to them about, okay, now, can we get it a nice roll? Can we get it a nice roll? And at the end, I'll tell you about my exercise for that also, with the roll things, because it's the same exercise for the whole song. But so that's number 1. That's the part number 1, because I don't know about you, but my kids make up all the chords in that section. You do the competitions, and you're always hearing different configurations of that. And I really think that it's beautiful the way it's written with some of those missing notes. So that's number 1. Number 2, where are you? Pet peeve number 2. You see all my red, I've got a lot of peeves, right? Okay, number 2. So number 2 is I guess, again, this section when you go into the triplets, it's so funny that this becomes something that they're like, and they either get really slow, like, okay, so they'll be playing, you're playing the song, you're here, and then they're like, it's like the big halt, the mighty halt, and the mighty, what is my notes next? Like, what's next? And you see my writing like this, but I don't give the students these answers these become assignments. So I might copy out this page and I'm like, I want you to come back and I want you to have looked at it and tell me what are the patterns. Because when you really look at the patterns, well, let's look at the left hand. Once again, the left hand, you've got your G, E, A, but look, it's a 7th chord where the 3rd is gone, right? But look at it. So there's 1. You have G, E, A. Oh, G, E, A. Oh, again, G, E, A, G, E, A, right? 4 times it's G, E, A in the left hand. And then it's D-A-D 4 times. And so I really like to point out to them that in the left hand, it plays the same thing for 4 times. It's almost like, so why are we getting all trippy dippy about it? And then they say, oh, okay, so I have them play it in blocked. Now here I do have to tell them, because the first one is from A, C, E, G, the 7th, and dropping the 3rd, it's kind of easy for me to get them to embrace the fingering of 1, 2, 4. I'm gonna do it with my right hand so you can see it. So it's easy for me to brace them 4 there, then they go down to the D, A, D 4 times, then the F, D, G 4 times, right? And then the B, G, C 4 times. Oh, look at it. What was that? Like, that's really cool. What do we like? We don't like, we really like being able to repeat things. So they're now really loving that left hand and then, playing it, and they just play it. And I really love to get my students playing and talking, playing and not looking at their hands, because then they start to get really comfortable and they start to put this stuff in their memory, not just repetition, now I know it, but kind of like, oh, it's a pattern. I can do this. In the right hand, the pattern becomes, and we do this block, but the pattern becomes, it's really about the thumb, because it's the only thing that changes, right? You have A, E, A, and it goes A, G. I have them place that. Let them feel that literally they're only doing this chord, A, E, A, G. Now have them place the F, A, F, right? Once again, just 1, 3, 4. Let them think about if it was a whole F chord. Move that second finger. And then once again, it doesn't move. The thumb moves. F, F, E, F. But so first we had 1, 2, 3, move, and now it's 1, 2, move back up. So there's that, but it's consistent, because now we're going to G, D, G, and we have G, 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 move. So it comes back, and then here they love it. Some teachers, here you can use 1, 3, 4. Some of them like 1, 2, 3. Some of my kids have gigantic hands. So my only rule with fingering is that they put it in and they do it the same all the time. That's pretty much it, if their hands are comfortable. And so here it places again, and you just have the thumb moving. D, C, D, C. So for those of you who don't know, so then they play it blocked. Chord, 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 move the thumb. Chord, chord, move the thumb back to the same chord, right? Chord, 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 move the thumb, and then the thumb moves just back and forth, but the bottom fingers stay the same. I think that's powerful. So then they're going to practice it right, left, right, left, right, left, move the thumb. Left hand doesn't change. It's like a gift from heaven. Then right, left, move the thumb. The left hand's the same. Same here, right? Move the thumb, and then etc. You know what I mean. So I have them play it blocked. Now, what is really the count? We've been doing, if they look at it, and I just really literally ask them, where is your and? 1 and 2 and. Where is that? And so we have 1 and 2 and. 1 and, move the thumb, 2 and I have them practice it that way so that they're really, really comfortable. Remember, they've not seen Little Fountain yet. That's my second part, because I don't know about you, but my kids really freeze on that. So the third part, of course, is now this melodic, beautiful part that doesn't really have, I don't have a whole lot of necessarily tricks for you, but the markings that you see here are really because right here is where it really gets different. And these two chords are just like, oh, well, okay, I guess we should be reading our music. Let's learn it. Because here in the left hand, in the beginning, it just goes from one thing to the next thing. It just goes back and forth. The right hand, so here I have them do separate hands. Learn the melody. This is the only part of the piece where, as some of you have already mentioned, we really want them to be thinking about making something pretty. You know, what's happening if it's a fountain where all of a sudden now this all has happened. And so I really just get them working this on their own, almost like this was its own piece. And no real advice to them, but here, you see here where it says 1, 2, 3, and it's got a slur mark. I didn't learn this like this, and so I love the fingering. Here, cross over, it's 1, 2, 3 again. Oh, it's like a miracle. Look, now it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're done. Because my students tend to pluck around and they think if they play it, it's good. But I'm trying to get them to learn, and all of us to learn the facility of doing the fingerings. Then you can play it without looking, and then it's back to the same thing. So this part with, like I say, no real tricks of it, but just telling them this is a song. And it can be a song right within its own. And then you've got your 7th chords that are throughout this piece that we're going to talk about at this very end. I hope you're all familiar with Little Fountain. If you're not, let me just point out something here in this very end, because these are the parts you don't see, like highlighted, are parts the kids don't really ever have a lot of trouble with. But if they're playing this on a lever harp, and if they're playing it like my students, for the most part, on a lever harp that's tuned in E flat, they don't have any E sharps. So you're not going to get that. But this little configuration here is just for them to put their hands on the B and stop it. When they do their gliss, they're here. And then they move it to the A. And it does change the glissando a little. It changes it some. You know, the biggest thing for me is that they understand they go C to the F to the C. But that part for my students doesn't have much problems. Here, special metronome note. Okay, so we're playing Little Fountain. How many of you know that, right? It's like the 8th notes, that's the part they fly on. And I'm like, if you were counting 1, 2, 1, 2, how are you going like this when you get to here? So the special note is there is that they know if we were going 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, it's just simply not as fast as they think. And consistently, those FG moments, for most of the students I hear, they do not count it out. They're going fast there. So that's my special metronome notice. Let's see, did I tell you that was the pattern part? Boom, 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 smaller kids. Okay, so that's what I start with on Little Fountain first, because I feel like this part is the easy part, even though when they look at it, it's like, that's the hard part. The part about this that I love is that for beginner students, and once again, I think this is why beginner students use this, is that it's the same notes in both hands. So as we're trying to get our kids to really read notes, still literally it's like, okay, if you read your right hand, your left hand is just echoing, it's just copying it, right? So for this, the biggest thing is we want it to sound like a fountain, not like, you know, a fountain that's clogged up. So we want it smooth. We want to be able to hear 8 full notes, right? So I start them out with blocked. Learn it blocked, right? Get the block chords, press in, and then the moving 8th note pattern. So what that little configuration, and for anyone who has some music, Little Fountain, Samuel Pratt Melody sells it. It's in their Daphne and Dauphines book. If you have the music, I know you don't necessarily need to see my notes, but if you want them, I'll send it to you. But it's not my music to give away. So you can just private message me. If it's a piece you already have, I can send you these foolishness. But here's the pattern, moving 8th notes. 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3. The whole song, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3. That's their first pattern. Then 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2 and 3. So those lines almost represent quarter, eighth, eighth. You see that? Next pattern. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and. Moving these eighth notes saved my life, because all of a sudden you can be very fluent, you can be very smooth with your playing, because it's almost like you've given every finger a massage, right? And so your fingers work. I even have my students do it backwards. 1 and 2, 3, 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and especially like me, my buzzy students, because one of the reasons we buzz is because we're not getting right on the notes we need to get on. So just having them do that exercise forward and back is helpful, and it does not mess up their knowledge of the song. I ask them when I give them to put an X where the pattern changes, because if we're here, of course, it changes right there. So I just have them put an X until they've put it in their memory. So that pattern works everywhere. When this, you can do the 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1. Have them exercise their fingers, so these bottom 2 and 4 fingers don't get lost in the shuffle. And that's where I said I'd tell you about the chords. Same with the chords. 1, 2, and I'm sorry, get the right chord. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. Just moving the chord round. Making them play it very different ways, so that when they play it, it really, really is in their fingers, is in their hands. Same. 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3. You get the deal. And here, same, the coda. So the coda is Little Fountain. You play it all the way through, and then when you repeat, I know you all know this, you go all the way back and you go all the way here to get to the coda. Sometimes the kids have not had maybe the best time playing it, and so make sure you also let them know that if they get back to the first page and they get right to that they can leave earlier. And of course, right now I'm not finding it, but you look at the music. This coda, they can jump to sooner. They don't have to play the whole song again. Some of us, when we're listening to it, and especially when we're listening to it and they're playing it and it's not really sounding so fountainy, give them an exit ticket. Give them an easy way out of it. I remember learning the Little Fountain, very young. It was Little Fountain, then Handel's Concerto. Not the best of pedagogical ways, but now there's more music. If you give it to them in bits and pieces, make sure once they get this. I had a student play for me the other day, and she was like, and it just was terrible, because now she could play it fast. My students want to play everything as fast as they can. I tell them, if I don't hear the fountain, if we don't hear every single note, right? We want to hear the fountain with the thumb being the melody, right? With the thumb being brought out. If we don't hear the fountain, they're playing too fast and they need to cut it out. I love the Little Fountain, though. I am 1,000,000 years old, and still, if the bride is late, you're going to hear Little Fountain while I'm standing up looking, trying to see where the bride is. And you're going to hear Little Fountain, and someone in the audience later is going to come up to you and say, I love that Debussy you played. And you're trying to think, what did you play? They say, oh, he's talking about Little Fountain again. There you go. It's the gift that keeps on giving. I really like it, but I really try to work the spots that are not the easy part in the front that they get to learn really quickly. I hope that helps. Little Fountain, there it is.
That was great. Thank you. I have an 80-year-old student learning the Little Fountain right now, and this is going to really help her. So I'm going to try all your techniques because she's pretty slow. So thank you.
Yeah, and I don't give them all of the music sometimes. I don't give them all the music. Yes, somebody's mentioning the Nutcracker cadenza. Yeah, all of these things, they work on everything. I used to think that if I did that little moving eighth note thing, that I wouldn't be able to play. I'm like, I just got the rhythm of the piece. Why are you trying to make me change the rhythm? No, it really kind of tells the truth on your fingers, what's weak for you, because we all have different fingers that are weak. For me, it's different days that different fingers are weak. So it's a good warm up.
Well,
That's my
thank you
street.
so much, Robin. Thank you. And thank you all of the teachers. You were great, wonderful. I learned so much. I owe you $1 million for all this great advice. Thank you so much. This has been recorded, and I'll make sure I've got a list of everyone who's on this Zoom right now, and I'll send you the handouts and everything, and make sure that you have an access to the replay. So does anyone have any final words that they'd like to say? Any questions? Or, we've gone a little over time, but it's okay. It's okay to spend a little extra time learning stuff, right?
Yeah, just thank you so much. It's one of the highlight of my month. Wonderful to see so many wonderful names like Robin and everybody that I've seen at a distance, and I just look forward to hearing from more people. Thank you.
And we'll do this again. The next one will be in July, and we've got Miranda Adams set up for that one, and Stephanie Bennett. And so we'll have more of these.
Hi, Steph.
There's wonderful teachers out there that we can learn so much from each other. So I think the sharing is so important. So thank you, everybody, so much. And thanks, Gretchen, for helping me moderate. And thank you all the teachers and all of you who attended. And have a wonderful Memorial Weekend. Signing off now, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.